Hello, 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 and welcome to the $1 Million Electrician Podcast, where we help home service pros like you supercharge your business and spark up those sales.
I'm Joseph Lucani, and together with my co-host, Clay Newmeyer, we're here to share the secrets that have helped electricians sell over $1 million from a single service van.
Now, it's time for sales. It's time for scale. It's time to become $1 million electrician. Hello, 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 our electrician brethren. Brothers?
Brethren.
Guys, for the first time ever, you are here on the $1 Million Electrician Podcast with us, and this podcast now powered by DuroMax. We've actually got a great representative, one of the best guys I've ever come to work with, honestly, Jesse Jesse, I didn't mean to say that wrong, at DuroMax.
Right.
And we wanted to finally unveil this big surprise that we've had for the last few weeks. We've been talking about this great portable generator partnership, and we've got that. So Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I know it's been a long time coming. I've already talked to a few guys, that have kind of found me thus far. So I'm glad we kind of crossed paths and kind of made this official and can kind of get this to the masses and really spread the message and help everybody out because we're all on the same page here.
I love that, man. I love that. A great start to this. And guys, I just want to let you know why you'd want to stick around, because this isn't a big sales pitch podcast. As you know, we keep showing up every week. Before that, it was 5 days a week to help you guys with real strategies to help you maximize your electrical business. Today is no exception. In fact, I think we've got better ways to help you maximize in this corner, this niche of your business. If it doesn't exist, you'll want to listen to this and consider why it maybe should. And Joe, I'd love for your help a little bit to explain why it was so powerful for you to add portable generators to your arsenal in your business.
I cannot wait to jump all over this. And Jesse, I just want to say it's such an honor having you here, man, because
Thank you, man.
I've been preaching it forever. I'm a generator junkie. I love generators, but specifically portables. Like, even it's a controversial statement. People will say, well, you mean Generacs, you mean automatics, right? It's like, no. I go in the exact opposite direction. If I had the choice to take a portable over an automatic, it would be portable every single time without a single question in place. I love those systems.
That's interesting.
Glad to hear it. We get a lot of success in that arena because, like we've discussed prior before we kind of talked, not everybody has the deep pockets for those automatic standbys. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of education that a lot of people don't know about that our portables can do a complete house, and in some cases with multiple AC systems. If you got a soft start on there and gives a customer a lot more flexibility. You don't have to sit there and pay 30 or 40 bucks a month for maintenance after you pulled permits and paid 10 grand plus to have this thing dialed in. You're looking at a fraction of that for essentially the same solution that you could use for 10 other uses at the same time.
The thing is that I actually want to challenge the thing you're stating, because you're right, but I don't think it's actually given the full context, because it's not just for those who don't want to put the same amount of pockets into it. Granted, you may have someone who has like a $7,000 or $10,000 automatic install, but that's a base install. That's really where you're at. I've done my grounding, I've done my conduits, I've done my base, I've done my wiring, I've done my ATS, and you're set, you're prepped, you've done your gas, but that's really where your entry level starts. But if you were to take a portable generator at that same value investment, they have a complete turnkey system that has every level of protection, every level of maintenance service, every level of convenience. And if you think about it, 10K to 10K, someone just gets into the door at one for someone who's walking out like a king. Like, the potential is there. You can still have very high ticket sales and actually make your customer happier as a real getting into a portable, rather than just setting up and competing with the big fish ocean of automatics.
I completely agree with you there. There's absolutely. And something else that we kind of take some pride on too is the fact that we run off of multi-fuel. So a customer, isn't tied to just a gas-powered generator where he's got to sit there and babysit gas, store it. And let's be honest, when there's a storm or an outage, it's not easy to find. Most of our generators, almost all of them, are at least a dual fuel, which means they run off of gas or propane. And propane has a 30-plus year shelf life. So if a guy has a couple of tanks sitting underneath his barbecue or in his garage, or he's got room for one, he can throw one in there, a tall tank like one I have here. Oops, right there. And that's going to last him. Yeah, that's going to save him. He's going to have 30 years of peace of mind there, waiting for him when he needs it, which is unheard of
Mhm.
in that respect.
There's actually one specific situation. I think every single electrician who's been an electrician for the past 10 years can tell you why dual fuel is actually the best way to go. And I'm going to speak to all the electricians out there and say Hurricane Sandy. And let me explain exactly why. New York, we got ravaged. Granted, the whole East Coast did, but I remember being on calls for weeks on those things. And the problem is all the gas stations could no longer power to pump their gas out of the tanks. And as a result, you had all these people with gas generators before dual fuel was really out in the open, and they couldn't power their systems. And as a result, I remember family coming in droves from New Jersey and actually going further north than us because they couldn't get functional gas. So the thing about portables that's really cool with the dual fuel is you can store propane an insanely long time without the degenerating effect like you would get with gasoline. So it's safer, it's less explosive in its tanks, it lasts for longer, and you can get them more readily filled because the tanks are above ground. So you can go to the fueling stations and they don't require the same amount of power capacity to operate. I don't need a huge gas pump to pump it out of the ground. I just need to crack a valve and fill it. So even for these situations, you can be extremely prepared in a much more economical way.
And you can still use gas. That's the other thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you can still use gas. If some guys are, diehard, they want to use gas. That's all they've ever used. I just tell them, hey, if you're going to use gas, just run it dry before you put it away, because it doesn't matter what generator you have. That's the only issues most of them have after a long period of time is when customers leave gas in there and it's unattended or without an additive. Maybe that might be a pause there.
No, it's all good.
No, you're good.
But I mean, the good thing about that unit, you can just flip this knob from gas to propane, and now we even have a tri-fuel machine. So if a customer has natural gas come into their house, like a lot of customers do, they don't even have to go chase or store the fuel. And then at the end of the day, they can still go back and use propane or gas at any given time. It's not like a standby where they have to open it up and fiddle with the jets. The way I could describe to customers, and I think you could back me up on this, Joseph, since you've got one yourself, is it's almost like changing the knob on an old TV set. You just flip the knob from one fuel source to the other, and that's it. And you're off the ropes from that fuel source, and you're on to the next one until you flip it back, or the other direction if you want to go to the third source if you have that option. So it definitely makes the versatility a long, stretch out a long way. And you can, like I said, use a generator for 100 different things, not just home power backup. You can let your kids power, or if their kids' power goes out, you can let them borrow your generator, where you don't have that option with a standby. You're married to that thing. You're going to have to make room on the couch if their power goes out and have people come over. You can't take it camping. There's a ton of different restrictions or limitations that those other ones have on top of the money that you have to pour out to have them, where we kind of come in clutch in all those respects.
Can I call attention to something here?
Sure, go for it.
So I just want to make sure people understand this, because for those that haven't used this dual fuel or tri-fuel system before, what you just said was easy to skim over, but really this is a powerful feature. So you're saying at the switch of a button, just literally switch like a selector switch for either gasoline,
Exactly
propane, or natural gas. That will change, I guess, the orifice or the carburation method, and just draw from that fuel source, and you can run your generator on either of the three.
That is absolutely correct. 100%. Yeah. Like I said, it's just like changing a channel on an old TV set. You don't have to open it up. You don't have to. In fact, the newer machines, I'm not supposed to probably say this, but the newer machines, you can just turn the knob while it's on. The older machines, you'd have to turn it off, turn the knob, and then turn it back on. Nowadays, you can flip the switch while it's on, and it might choke for a second or kind of wind down or cough, and then all of a sudden it's up and running on the other fuel source, and all without skipping a beat. And we've done tests where we've had the radio plugged in playing, and the same song, it doesn't skip. The song still keeps on playing. The generator makes a few noises or might wind down and pick right back up, but the music's still playing. Just to kind of prove the point.
Wow, how popular is that tri-fuel generator?
It's one of our most popular by a landslide. In fact, we have our 13,000, which was recently awarded by Popular Mechanics as one of the most dependable units for home power backup. For most customers, that they basically classified up to a 2,000 square foot house with an efficient AC system. I've got videos that I can send you guys with that have show customers in Houston with 2 AC systems running off our 13,000. And here's the other part I like to point out is that's on the tri-fuel on the natural gas aspect. which once you get into it, you'll realize that the generators do run a little bit less power when you go from gas to propane to natural gas just because of the temperature. But that's why I wanted to point out that when you're watching this video, when you do get a chance to take a look at it, you'll see what our natural gas will run a whole house in Texas with literally 2 AC systems in this case. As long as they're staggered and they've got some soft starts on them, but you have the same solution there with a 13,000 watt generator that everybody's got room for and a much more affordable budget for, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible that I can kind of explain the reasons why some would want a particular fuel at different times? Because they all serve different purposes for different people. Is it okay if I kind of add into that?
Yeah,
I'd love to.
Okay. So the way I view it is the fact that you have a tri-fuel is extremely beneficial for certain situations, for certain clients. Obviously, everyone can get some benefit from it, but the different fuel sources actually have different purposes. So as an example, if you have someone who's going for an extended outage, right, and they're concerned about long run times, well, natural gas is actually one of the best sources for them because it's non-affected by underground disturbances. Like, it would take some serious infrastructural damage to create a block where the natural gas lines don't deliver. So you have consistent, clean power. Now, you technically lose 1,000 watts with natural gas using the fuel, but with a 13,000 unit, that's plenty. You still can operate 12, can do an insane amount of stuff in the house. I like the natural gas because it allows you to say, I know if I'm going 2 weeks, I could operate, and anyone who's gone through Irene or Sandy, like, you can tell I'm traumatized, but anyone who's gone through those things, you want multiple weeks of coverage. The next would then be the propane. Propane's an extremely clean fuel, but the benefit behind it is I can take a 40 gallon, a 50 gallon, a 60 gallon, and I could load it and I could take it with me places. Like, if you think to yourself, how much gasoline do you really feel comfortable keeping in the back of your truck as you're driving somewhere? But I could tie down 120 gallons of propane, and then I'm totally fine with only 2 containers. It's extremely clean, doesn't gum the carburetor, very, very smooth. Gasoline is like what I consider the Swiss Army knife of fuels, in that you can get it almost anywhere. Everyone has it. If you, for some reason, you put the stabilizer in it and you never need it, within 2 years it lasts. I can use it to put into my car, provided I don't have an EV. The benefit is you're right. As long as you run it dry, it's not going to cause any damage to the system long term. So you've got 1, which is meant for extremely long outages. 2, which is the middle road, which I consider the cleanest of power. And 3 is the most flexible of the power. So if you have a tri-fuel unit, I can see someone being able to take it and apply it in multiple different homes. So rather than having to buy multiple units, I can have one that I can serve multiple purposes for. And that's why I see such an extreme benefit of the tri-fuel systems.
Can I correct you on just one thing?
Sure.
Even if you have an EV, let's be honest, you could put gasoline in it.
I mean, I have a hybrid, so technically, yeah. I mean, I'm running EV and gas.
Joe's loading it up.
Absolutely.
Sorry, guys, playing games here.
No,
so
I like it.
This is obviously a really powerful and, like you said, a popular solution, Jesse. Now, you've been in this industry a long time, right? How long have you been with DuroMax? Do you mind sharing that?
I've been with, I've been here for, believe it or not, I've been with parent company for just turned 30 years this past April. So I've been here since, as I like to say, since before the internet, when we were doing smoke signals to get your attention. Been here for a while. And so I've seen how we've grown, and I've seen how basically, the innovation has come out. We've got some new stuff in the works now. We're actually coming out with the EFI models so that we can sell in California, where we're actually headquartered at. So we've got machines that we can kind of sell in that respect that are going to be completely regulated for that respect, but you can still use them everywhere else. We're also really big with the inverters. So we talk to a lot of the guys that make the concession trucks and the food truck guys. And they really like our inverters because they're super quiet. They're also dual fuel, and they have propane on their trucks in most cases. And something else that I do think is really important that we kind of talk about that I think your customers will appreciate is all of our DuroMax generators. Every one of them has 100% copper windings. And that's a huge deal that a lot of other guys don't realize, and most other companies cheap out on. And I'll be honest with you, it's a big difference, and it's why we can give our customers nowadays a 5-year warranty, which is something I also wanted to hit on when your installers are hooking these up, It's going to be nice to be able to walk away from a house telling them that they have a machine there for a solution for home power backup with a 5-year warranty that they don't have to pay a nickel extra for. And the reason we can do that is because we have the copper windings. And the other option, just so the customers kind of understand it, is aluminum. And when a guy has aluminum windings in his generator, most customers have no idea that it's in there because they'd have to cannibalize the machine to figure that out. And a lot of customers is kind of over their head anyway. But the problem with the aluminum is it resists heat. Generators only make their power when they get hot. So with the copper windings, they still get the same temperature. They still heat up, and they do get very hot. But the thing is that they're still going to get hot years later, which is why they're still going to make the same amount of power, which if you look at our competitors with the aluminum windings, you can look in their fine print. Most of them have a 1 or 2 year warranty. Predator, you can look at them. They have a 90-day warranty. So imagine going to a customer, closing a deal, and telling them you've got 90 days of peace of mind or 5 years of peace of mind. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a game changer, and that's because these are literally designed for home power backup first, and then everything else is kind of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but more of a convenience, where everybody else kind of is looking at it, hey, how can we get a good price point? And, oh, yeah, you can use it for that because we'll slap a 50 amp plug on the face of it, so we can tell you can use this for home power backup. But at the end of the day, it wasn't designed, it wasn't engineered for that, so you're just, you're rolling the dice.
Can I speak to the inverters for a moment? Because I think it's also something that's slept on. Now, I messed with inverters way back when it was not a fun or cool thing. I remember rigging my van's car battery into the back of an inverter to feed it DC so that we could put out just enough to charge our batteries and tools. And I can tell you, I've gotten bit a couple of times off of it because it was a cannibalized system. But being able to have the inverters that are more reliable and also durable, you can keep in the back of your van, all you need is 2,000 watts, and you've got more than enough to do an insane amount of tasks that you're going to run into. But the fact that you also offer the higher wattage inverters, which I did some research on with you, which I think is awesome that you do, you can also take those and apply it in situations that people might not have already considered. Such as if you wanted to say, I want to cover certain office systems, or I want to, like even Clay, you want to go out on the boat and you want to have the ability of powering something, you don't want to set up the solar rig, you can take an inverter and you can have it in the background, and it's so quiet that you wouldn't actually know it's going on. So I could actually host a meeting right now with an inverter right there, and it would still work. I think that's so cool. You have that as well. I don't want people sleeping on it. It's a great technology.
Yeah, we have a lot of success with them, and we're also coming out now with the tri-fuel inverters. And we do have the biggest inverter on the market right now. We have a 16,000 watt dual, and we do have that in a tri-fuel now inverter, which has not one, but believe it or not, 2 massive 50 amp plugs that are both hot at the same time right on the panel. And the food truck guys that, they think about the guys that run the coffee trucks and these guys that have some seriously demanding, appliances that they're also the mobile grooming guys. They need sometimes some serious amperage, and that's what these generators come in clutch for. They're super quiet because they've got incredible insulation. They're all enclosed and encased, so these guys aren't going to be kicked out of any events or anything because of the noise. So they're usually under about 60 decibels, give or take. In fact, ironically, our 16,000, which it's kind of covered up back there, but it's a massive machine, and it is, I want to say 400 pounds or so, and it's also the quietest one out of all of our generators. Even our other inverters, it's quieter. And the reason is that it's got insulation that's about this thick inside. It's all encased, and it's just designed to be very well, superb and dialed in. It's very, very clean, super clean power. In fact, less than 3%. Sure. I was going to say real quick though, last thing I did want to share with you on all of our inverters is I know most inverters are generally about 5% THD or total harmonic distortion. All of ours have been tested at less than 3%, which is pretty significant. So if a guy has any medical equipment or any concerns, he can plug in any sensitive equipment into any of our inverters, and he's not going to have to second guess himself because there's not going to be any fluctuations in that respect.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I would say thank you for that, because that is a great thing, talking about having clean power, which we can definitely touch on. The thing that I didn't want to skip over is there may be someone who actually has a food truck as well. And I want to say that you having the inverter actually helps your customer service. As someone, as an autistic person, I don't like certain loud sounds. Obviously, it can be an effect. And being able to actually hear the person take my order and not having to cover my ears is a very important thing. So you can think about going to these food truck events, and mostly they have the gas generators that are strapped to them, that they have cords running everywhere, and they rip the pull cord, and they're extremely loud. Like usually it's plus 70 to 80 decibels, which is extremely loud. The fact that you're operating at 60 actually means that you're quieter than an automatic, because some automatics are operating at 65, usually 60 to 65. So you have a portable system at just as quiet as an automatic system, with the enhanced reliability of it being strapped to your vehicle and being able to say, I can hear my customer's order because I don't have to shout it at them. That's a huge thing people are sleeping on. Just being able to hear the other person and not have your customers go, it's too loud, I'm going to go to the other one.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. That's 100%. Yeah, and that definitely we try to stick around that 60 decibel rating, because we know a lot of the events can't have their generators over 60, so we try to get as close as we possibly can. At least that's our target, in that respect on the inverters, which is huge. And the other thing I tell people about, it's nice, we have a really good reputation in the concession truck industry and such. And what I tell some other customers is I got to remind them is, I hate to say it, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but the food truck guys are the least mechanical guys on the other side of the counter. They just want to be able to push a button and be behind the counter doing what they do best, making food and getting it out there. So the fact that we have a really strong reputation in that industry and keep these trucks on the road, keep them going, go out there for years to come, and have the multi-fuel option has definitely added to our reputation, and basically put us out there and standing alone from the rest of the guys, especially Predator and Westinghouse. Those guys are they're constantly chasing us. I mean, there's no denying it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pause us there for a moment to do our wins of the week. Jesse, we didn't tell you about this, but every podcast we like to pause right in the middle or somewhere there around and share a few wins. And the final win I want to share actually includes a generator, likely a DuroMax, although that's not in their exact text, but we're going to assume it is for your behalf. So the first win I see here is someone reported they got their pricing right, hired another tech who's mainly a sales tech, and will be responsible for duplicating this individual. And on a positive note, we just completed 107,000 in sales for the month of May. And I close personally 90% of my jobs with an average sale of almost $3,100. And that is a massive win rate there from someone on the team. We got another one, Sherman, win of the week right here. Got called out for a trip to GFCI in a bathroom, turned it into a $34,000 full home rewire, platinum package, all the extras, membership, the whole deal. And finally, Billy, who was on the podcast not long ago, some of you remember from Billy going through the depths of hell, as he said, someone who's on the great path of recovery, recently served a couple who just moved into a new house. They want new panels, a generator, redevice, 5 big-ass fans installed, exhaust fan, heat lamp circuit, and a multitude of other things. The largest sale they've ever had, well over $20,000 deposit collected. Those are some massive wins, guys. Thank you for sharing and keep on going. Speaking of wins, this ties in perfectly because Billy actually said to me, Jesse, we finally announced who this secret strategic alliance was. And he said, Clay, I knew it had to be DuroMax. Why do you think one of our shared clients would say that? They knew it had to be DuroMax, the way we spoke about you guys, about this partnership, and just knowing what we're about in this premium service. What do you think that says about DuroMax, and why is that, Jesse?
I would have to basically lean on the fact that kind of like we mentioned earlier, that these machines are designed and engineered for to give customers an affordable solution for home power backup, which is what your guys are out there battling with, dealing with. And the reality is, every time one of your electricians shows up at a customer's house, there's no chance that customer has not had that thought across their mind, whether that call was for it or not, is what do I do when the power goes out? And if your guy can address that concern, whether it's at the top of their mind, or at least just let them know that they can address it for a much more affordable solution, I think it's going to be it's going to be a win-win for everybody. You're going to be having a lot more wins of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something else to speak to, and I think you're super humble about it. Modest mouse here. I think your service, and that's the biggest reason we wanted to ally with you guys. I've never had even remotely close to neutral service with you.
Mm-hmm.
You've always been an example of just high energy, ready to serve, help that person in front of you. And you personally, I mean, you're taking calls from electricians every day for these orders, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that's how I found you guys. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I found you guys, a guy who had placed a couple of orders on our from us direct, and I reached out to him personally and it mentioned to him this program that I've been working on, which, I can touch on now or I can touch on later. But essentially, what we're kind of doing is putting a network together where customers can just go to our website at DuroMaxPower.com, put their zip code in, and if your customers are signed up to be an electrician with us, and a certified guy, there's no cost to the service at all. They're going to be getting phone calls from people around the corner from them saying, "Hey, put your cape on, come and rescue me with a DuroMax. I don't want to spend 12 or 15 grand plus on an automatic standby. I want a more affordable solution with more versatility." And your customers, our customers at this point, are going to be able to sell them the generator at the same retail pricing that they're looking at everywhere else online, and make a healthy chunk of change and get everything on the install part of it. And then, like I alluded to earlier, we've also recently partnered up with Reliance Controls and Ergo, so we can kind of make it a one-stop shop when the guy needs the transfer switch, the cord, the inlet box. We can kind of cross all those things off the list, and I could even ship them directly to the customer. Send the electrician the tracking, do all the heavy lifting in the background. He shows up, does the install, and tells me where he wants the next one gift wrapped and ready for him, and we'll do all the heavy lifting and ricochet it to him.
Something that's also really cool, because you keep mentioning like it's affordable level, able to do that. I don't think people understand quite the level of affordability that it can be. And I'd like to touch on that lightly. Obviously, we're going to talk about options at some point, but in this circumstance, you can go into a customer's home who's not calling for a generator, and you can recognize that they have a need for it. And the thing about an automatic is that you're in all the way all at once, or you're not. Like, there are certain key things that have to be in place for an operational system. Portables don't work that way, and it's a huge advantage to the customer. So if you were to think about it, you have someone who has a need, but maybe they don't have all the means of spending even more than $1,000. Like, okay, I can do that. I can provide you with a generator, and at least what that means is you could run extension cords to your key items. The following year, I could come back and offer you the interlock and an inlet, or manual transfer switch and an inlet. Maybe another $1,000 goes into it. Great. Then you come back and you can say, I can offer the enhancements on top of it. I can go to the ongoing maintenance agreement with it. So you can have a customer who from day one had a means of backing up their system. And as long as they're willing to continually invest in it to a certain extent, we can make it just as convenient, like to a really close level as an automatic, for a fraction of the cost if it's designed properly, which is just so cool, because I think people are sleeping on the immense potential of just offering it. Put the sign on your door, people will ask you about it, and then as a result, you're walking out with better deals than you thought you were going to be able to find, because they wanted it and you didn't even know.
I completely agree. And I mean, once you start, helping some of these families out and these customers out with this solution, it pretty much, picks up the momentum. Everybody else in their family wants to know how your lights are still on, and it just catches on like gangbusters. And that's really what, we'll have complete neighborhoods that'll just be set up, and just because this one electrician, did one at the corner, and everybody else kind of got wind of it because he was the only guy with the lights on, and next thing you know, we got a pallet being dropped off at that address, and he just slide them down to the separate driveways, and that's happened several times. I mean, countless times. And it does help. We have a great product. We also, just to kind of throw a few other things out there, on our dual and tri-fuel machines, we don't nickel and dime the customer. They comes with all the accessories. The hoses are included. The battery and the wheel kits are included. All the fittings are included for the hoses, which is a big deal, because who wants to go look for fittings and hoses or have to pay extra for a hose when they didn't realize it because they didn't see it when they ordered it. So this is all in the box. We basically make it as easy as possible, and kind of going back to that one-stop shop there, trying to fill in all the blanks. And the newer machines even have remote controls now, so a customer can just hit the button on there to turn it on or off. All of our inverters have had those for a little while now for the food truck guys, so they can stay behind the scenes and do what they do best and hit the button when they need to and when they don't. So it makes it, they're pretty much thinking of everything, which is nice.
I want to engage with our audience for a moment here and just ask you guys a few questions. Wherever you're watching this or following on YouTube has been growing. You've been getting lots of comments there. But if you're on the group, if you're on your favorite podcast channel, wherever that may be, please leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Are you or have you used portable generators in the past to service your clients? Have you used DuroMax before? And do you find this to be an opportunity that could open up more? Because if that's true for you guys, then we've got a webinar coming up that is including Jesse, and it's diving deep with Joseph on the mastery of this niche. And Joe, just to recap this quick, like what portion of the 1.3 million that you were selling from your van do you think was responsible in generators alone?
I honestly don't know the specific number offhand. But if I was going to say, poor generators as a whole is a significant part of our business. I would say anywhere between 40 to 60%. But at the same time, the majority of those sales were portables, not automatics. Yeah. Because once we figured out how to create options for portables and to speak to them in a way that people could understand that it's not a mechanical monstrosity, it was very easy to convert believers. People would show up and be like, I want a Generac. Okay, do you want a Generac or do you want a generator? Oh, I want a generator. Okay, then let's talk about that. And as a result, it was just a phenomenal outcome.
Yeah. And what I love about the 5-year warranty, Jesse, if I can say, is just to get wheels turning for electricians out there, because no one really does this. Again, they're sleeping on it, as Joe said a couple of times. But why not match a maintenance program with that 5-year warranty? Why not provide that full peace of mind for just the expected guaranteed lifetime of this unit? And wouldn't that mean that you'd be in the home of your customer, commissioning, retesting some of the equipment? Sure, there's a little bit of work, but not that much. Really what this is a service that you provide, and it's called peace of mind. And that would put you in touch with your existing clients at least 4 times a year. Because if you're going twice, then you're going to call a couple times. You're going to talk to them every season. So instead of waiting for them to call the next electrician, which could or could not be you, depending how convenient you are to find or your number is even at that point, why not be there, be present, be with them on that journey and support them the whole way? And if you did, as Joseph shared so many stories on this, where you start to see, hey, that one time $5,000 client turned into $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 over the period of those years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a massive opportunity. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say specifically that one of the largest clients, the largest lifetime clients we ever had was a $300,000 client. It was a residential, but the reason why we started that job was he was a generator client. That was the cool part. He called because he bought the generator himself and was just looking for an installer. And once we started offering options, he says, I'm never going anywhere else. So you can get in the door with a generator, and just as you learn about the system and learn about the family, which is a requirement to design the system, I now know the family. I can design the emotional solutions to serve them.
And if, as Jesse said, there's blocks full of people putting DuroMax in the backyard under their back steps, wherever they're placing this thing, then wouldn't it be an advantage to have DuroMax logo on your van as a maintainer, not just an installer, but someone that literally works hand in hand with Jesse and DuroMax to make sure that your unit's up to good health, even if it hasn't run in a year?
Mm-hmm. You know, in addition, sorry, go ahead.
I'll say, you know, speaking on that just for briefly, we also have, I can kind of set the guys up with it if they're ever interested in doing any mobile service on them. We have a whole service department that's those guys are incredible at what they do, which is half our reputation is, you know, I can't take any of that away from them. Those guys are amazing at what they do. But we have mobile guys that go out there and work on the machines or take calls. And we have another basically search on our website for guys who need, you know, somebody locally that can come help them out there. But just to touch on it, once your customer does leave their customers with a generator, if they wanted, they can contact us directly. They can contact Tractor Supplies, Northern Tools, Alt-Equips, and there are hundreds of other small engine repair shops scattered throughout the country, and other electricians that are very familiar with the insides of a generator that have kind of signed up and filled out some of the paperwork to be set up as a servicing guy. So we can kind of take care of both sides of the counter on that respect. We've got parts in stock here and in Tennessee, and we're also building another service center in Texas. so we can get stuff to those guys really quick, because the market is demanding it there. There's no doubt about that. So we can see that. We can see the writing on the wall.
Jesse, you mentioned pallets earlier, and I want to ask you a question. Average electrician versus some of the clients that we share together, the ones that work with us and work with you guys, what would you say is the difference that you've noticed in those relationships on your side?
It's a great question. I'm kind of glad that you asked me that, to be honest with you, because the reason I'm so excited to talk to your guys is because the receptive of the customers that I've talked to, maybe a better way to rephrase it is the customers that come from your group are very, very motivated and can see the writing on the wall, for lack of a better word. They can understand, and they're also in a position where they're looking at trying to grow and not just, pacify, not just kind of do what they're doing. They're looking at other opportunities, and once they get wind of this, it adds up very quick, because you can bang a few of these out a lot quicker than an automatic, and you're got a customer way happier because they're not paying 30 or 40 bucks a month after they digested a used Camry payment, to get that thing hooked up to the side of their house. So it's definitely a great thing. I mean, it's fun to be a part of. I can't deny that, and I'm glad to be on the side of the counter and helping customers out, and with a good product. Really, if we didn't have a good product, it'd make it a lot tougher. I mean, just for lack of better words, but we have a great product, and our service department makes my life real easy. I tell them that almost once a week, man. You guys make me look like a hero, man. I don't know what else to say. They're really good at what they do, no doubt.
The thing that I'm just giddy over here, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm beaming on this end, because you're saying, and you're talking about the most important thing about generators that most electricians pass on. Now, this is the craziest thing. Like, they literally pass on the most money-making thing you can do, is the service. Like, if you think about it, everyone is installing generators, but very few actually want to maintain them. And you think about it, who's currently in your market maintaining the portables? But those are the ones that are most inconvenient for the customers to actually take care of themselves. Like, you have to physically pick it up, or you have to move it, or you got to transport it. It's an investment to do. But if you can actually understand the system and you know how it's supposed to operate as a specialist, now you are in a completely blue ocean, because no one else in your market is maintaining portables. You're now seen as a specialist because it's your go-to thing. And every generator you sell creates a continuous stream of ongoing clients. So it's like, I'll pay once, and every year it just keeps growing and growing. And if you do your job the right way, those service customers become electrical customers, or they actually refer you to more generator customers. So when you say service, I want you to shout it from the mountaintops, because some people are just not getting it yet.
Oh, I agree. I mean, that's definitely something they spend a lot of time on, and this was I'll share. This was actually back when Sandy was going. I know you mentioned this earlier, but I'll never forget this. And I'm not even in the service end of it, but there was an email that was sent out, and it said, "Hey, if a customer has a DuroMax generator, and we have the part in stock, it makes no difference if he's out of warranty. Send the part out to the customer, because if we can get that generator up and running under these circumstances, there's no better commercial, I'm not sure what the word they use for it, but no better publicity you could have than expressing a $20 part to that customer," which I thought was really nice, because I've worked with a lot of other manufacturers in the past, and not all the manufacturers look at things that way. They look at, like, well, that's going to cost us 30 bucks to send this part out to this customer. And instead of looking at it like, hey, it's going to only cost us 30 bucks to make this whole neighborhood, preach the gospel about us. And I was really impressed when that email came out. I was like, that's really neat, because I was already proud to be here, but when that kind of stuff comes out, it really, I never, and that's why it's stuck in my head, and it's been like that for, since Sandy. It's been there for a while, and it's kind of the same morale, the same thought process that they have. It's like, instead of looking at it like, hey, this is going to cost us, it's more of like, hey, this is an investment. And that's why they do the copper windings, because if we're going to warranty these things for 5 years, we're going to spend a few extra bucks at the beginning, because it's going to be cheaper in the long run, instead of going, well, let's cheap out from the gate and see how much we can make and go from there. And it's just a completely different side of the marketing business, and it's the right place to be, to say the least.
100%. Yeah, I love this conversation, guys. I want to address the audience again. If you're watching or listening and you answered, no, I haven't used DuroMax before. If that was one of your answers, then this part's actually for you specifically, because man, have we got a deal cooking here. Jesse was sweating helping us put this together for sure. And
Here's an understatement.
and Joe's been encouraging this for a while. In fact, it brings me back to the story of Alan. Many of you heard Alan on the podcast last season. Alan, great job with this, but he hadn't had, he had experience with generators prior, but in his business, he hadn't independently gone and taken the leap and made a sale and then done the install and led that. So he was able to work with Joe. I think it took him like a week and a half. And Joe always gives this advice. We'll be giving it at our webinar as well, so you can take full advantage of this. If you haven't done this for yourself before, then do it for yourself first. Don't trial on your customer, trial on yourself. Who doesn't need some backup power, especially as an electrician? Master being the hyper local hero by having the lights on when the power's out on your own block first. And Jesse's got one hell of a deal to honor that and help you guys with your first demo unit. Are you able to talk about that on here, Jesse?
Sure. I mean, I could. I don't know if I can give out the pricing once, but I'm still gonna. I mean, I can tell you this: once these guys reach out to me and they reference that they come from the service loop, they'll have access to a 13,000 watt DuroMax generator, their choice, whether it's a dual fuel, a gas only, if they do decide to want to go that route, or even the new tri-fuel machine. I basically got it worked out where I can get them one brand new 13,000 watt generator, brand spanking new at a ridiculous price, including shipping. And the design of it, this program, was basically to give them an opportunity to one of two different things. I'd love for them to hook it up at their house and run it through the paces and understand it and comprehend it. If the guy's already knows enough about it, I would still offer the same program to him. And the only thing I would hope is that he would put it on his truck and kick the tires on it. And when a customer says, "Hey, I don't have the pockets for a standby," you can say, "Let me just show you something else. It's a much more affordable solution. It'll make your wife just as happy," which is probably half these calls are generally derived on making the missus happy. And it's just a good way for the customer to get his feet wet without having to be so invested into it. And I can assure you it's a it's a ridiculous price. You guys could both co-sign that. But it's basically just incentivized to kind of give any of our service loop partners an opportunity to kind of get their feet wet, have one of them at home, and kind of go run through his paces so that when they go out to the customer's house, they can convey that confidence of the fact that they have had this unit at their own house, protecting their own family, and that they understand what it can do and comprehend it. And that's what we got going. And then going forward, they'll have a smoking deal, regardless for the installs.
So just to be clear, guys, that demo unit, that first unit, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, whether Jesse slaps my hand or not, like they brought this down to pretty much cost. I've never seen a better price for this. It's incredible. What you can do is just make sure to give Jesse the code word SLE Podcast, because he's going to know that came from this podcast, and he's going to keep a little tally and make sure that we can only give so many of these away. So if you mention that code, he'll make sure it gets attributed to that right place and you get the right deal on that. So SLE Podcast, you've got to reach out to Jesse direct to get this. He's a great guy, doesn't bite, like I said, exceptional service. How do we get a hold of you, Jesse?
So I got a couple different options. I got a direct number here at the headquarters, which is real easy. It's 909-490-5789, or you can shoot me an email. My first name, Jesse, Jesse, at DuroMaxPower.com, and that's DuroMax and then power.com. And just like I said, reference that they came from the podcast so that I don't try to charge them retail, which I'm sure they'll do once they figure that out, and they'll see, this had it up pretty quick in my favor, and will justify sticking around and listening to the podcast at a minimum. I can assure you that.
You can also find Jesse's details just below this, as Tony, at the time you're hearing this, has gone and put those details below. Go and grab that information, send Jesse a message, and grab your at-cost demo unit, essentially. And for anyone that wants that continuation, because this is much, much bigger than just a demo unit, I think on average we saw 15 to 20% savings, depending how many units you guys are buying. Jesse, I don't know if I'm quoting that correctly.
15 to like 29, I think I seen them in. I mean, I swung for the fences, and yeah, your guys will be sending you and me Christmas cards when they get signed up. Is my goal.
That's the goal, man. More Christmas cards.
Yeah.
But the best way to take
100%.
advantage of that is actually to join us in the webinar, where we'll actually share specifics of that pricing in this deal and how you can take advantage of that. Not only that, but Joe's going to help you go deep on making the most of this opportunity. It makes no sense for us to get you to buy one demo unit and never come back again and never help another customer with this again. We want to help you take this to the level that Joe did and be a niche generator specialist, providing half of your company's revenue from this great opportunity. But not only that, just service at a higher level. And there's some key components here that I can't wait for you to get from Joe and from our portable generator blueprint. So the second step to this, if you comment generator blueprint where you're listening to us, then we're going to connect you with that great resource. We've already got the blueprint outlined, some of this deal outlined with Jesse and DuroMax, and a lot of what's going to be talked about in this webinar, but you'll want to be there. So if you comment that, you're going to be able to get your free tickets to that webinar. And that's it for my shameless plug for this episode. Jesse, we just have another minute left here. Is there anything else you wanted to share with this room, this audience of great electricians looking to prosper?
I'm just super excited to get, to start talking to your customers, because I know the few that I've already talked to so far have been incredible. They can see the writing on the wall. The momentum builds very quick. We try to make it as easy as we can. Like I mentioned, we've got all the accessories to go with it. Multiple warehouses. We usually ship the same day, if not the next business day at the absolute latest. But most of our orders, if they're in before like noon, are out that same day. I think Joe could co-sign that. He placed an order, and before it was warm, I had tracking in his direction. So we're definitely very, very efficient. And with that being said, the last thing I will mention is, we do also offer free shipping on all of our generators, which includes liftgate service. So most of these are going to residential neighborhoods. So your customers, are not going to have to worry about getting this thing off the back of a truck or any of that stuff. We pretty much addressed all these concerns and hiccups thus far, since we've been doing this for decades. So I'm excited to get some more guys under our wings and hit the ground running and spread the gospel.
Love it. Any closing comments from you, Joseph, today?
Actually, can I give a little bit of a teaser? Because there's actually something that we can do that's gonna be really cool. So we actually swiped, and one of the reasons why is because I'm actually doing something for one of my friends, where I want to become so immersed in DuroMax and understand it to such an extent that I'm actually going to be learning everything about these systems. I'm going to take them inside and out. But he's doing me a favor in that he's lending me his home for me to install a generator for him. And I'm going to literally be walking through the exact step-by-step processes to teach you how to sell these services at the most efficient and effective levels in a way that it'll literally be like spoon-fed to you. So I cannot wait to do that, because once that goes, it's just going to keep growing in the ways that we can actually really offer DuroMax in a way that people can understand and effectively do.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for joining us, and DuroMax for providing these wonderful deals. And I know you guys worked really hard on that to help our electricians, which in turn is just an excellent opportunity, an excellent ecosystem to be a part of. Your great service is commendable. And thank you, Joseph, for always lending your experience and stories. And thank you guys for listening, following along, and reaching out to Jesse to get your demo model and grabbing that generator blueprint and joining us in the webinar. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Talk to you next week. Bye for now.
Looking forward to seeing you soon.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the $1 Million Electrician Podcast.
We hope you're buzzing with new ideas that charged up to take your business to the next level.
So don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with fellow electricians. Together, we'll keep the current flowing.